Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a Quiet Place fan.
Hi, I'm Senthil, and I'm a Bird Box fan.
Scott, it's interesting watching the two movies that we have to discuss for today versus some of the other low budget movies. In particular, I was thinking back to our discussion about Pungo,
Yeah.
which is also a low budget movie. It's contrasting them with the two that we had today. And I'm interested in, what your reaction is in terms of what was the movie maker's intent with the two that we saw today versus something like Pungo, which all had about the same low budget approach.
Yeah. So the two that we had, the Killer Rack 2015 and Velocipaster from, I believe it's 2019. It could have been 2020. The Killer Rack $25,000 budget, and Velocipaster was a $35,000 budget. So the big difference for me, Synthol, between those two movies that we just did and the Witch movie, these two movies did not take themselves seriously.
Not at all.
So the Witch one was, they were trying to do some comedy there, but it was overly serious. These two realized that they had no budgets and didn't take a damn thing seriously. For me, like in Velocipaster, the final dinosaur attack, I was rolling. I was laughing so hard. Now, and, but they knew you were going to be laughing, right? They
Yeah.
knew that it was goofy what you were seeing there, right? And the ending of the Killing Rack was the exact same thing, right? What are you going to do, right? What are you going to do with no money and something called the Killing Rack? So for me, I think that was the distinguishing difference, Synthol, between these two and Pungo. Was, I think Pungo, they really tried to tell the story of something that had happened with a little bit of comedy and some horror built in on a low budget. These two were like, nope, forget it. We're not even going to try. I mean, it's not that they didn't try. It's just that they went, we realize this is,
But
we got
what
no
was
money.
interesting to me was, yeah, you're absolutely right. The two that we saw today did not take them so seriously. We're not trying to. When the beheading happens at the end of the movie, it's hilariously a rubberhead and
Oh,
obviously a rubber.
huge. And they are playing up the fact that it's a rubber head. I that's the thing, Synthol. I mean, I so I tried watching, I'm just going to be honest with you. I tried watching Velocipaster before. I couldn't get through it. Then I said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. And the ninjas alone are hilarious, right? Nothing has anything to do with anything. There is no plot, there is no story. They've got these weird montages in there. And by the end of that movie, you're going, it worked to a certain degree, because you know what? If they were trying to make me laugh, it worked.
And but what was interesting is that Pungo, a potentially lower budget from what we can tell, less money spent making it, had significantly better practical and CG effects.
Agreed.
So I don't know that either one of the movies we saw today intended ever to make an attempt at a real
No.
serious of any kind.
What's even more fascinating to me, they've both become cult classics. Did you read they're doing a
Yes.
Velocipaster 2,
Yep.
and he's gotten funding for a third. So it's like Sharknado, right? It took off, and what was it? Birdemic, that horrible Birdemic, right? That is like a cult classic. So these two low budget films have become these cult classics, and I think the reason is because they never took themselves seriously in making these. And I think that's where both of these now, from what I can see, is the Killing Rack. That was it. There was never anything else. Many of the people who actually were characters in that did not go do anything else. Now, some of
Yeah.
them did. Some of them have been in some, you're like going, oh, wow, they were in that movie. Um, but what's fascinating to me about both is the character acting was horrible. The dialogue was god awful, and they pull it off to get to these endings that it's the payoff, and they worked. um Pungo, for me, they were really trying to capture the essence of a true story and added the horror to it. And like you said, for the money that they had, the special effects they did, I salute them. I don't even know how they did some of the, the special effects that they pulled off for the budget they had. But I still think they were trying to take themselves a little too seriously. Either A, you have an incredible opportunity, and now you go back and watch Blair Witch now. You and I have talked about the Synthel, very low budget film, and people go, oh, it's the dumbest thing ever. But nobody had ever done anything else like that before, and it worked by taking it seriously. So they took it seriously, built a website, got news people to believe that this was real, and it worked. So either when I'm looking at low budget, you're either going to be able to pull that off, or you're just going to take yourself as unseriously as possible and go, this is what I got to work with.
Yeah, because if you're trying to go for serious and you're not successful, then it's in getting to where you want to go.
Yeah.
The difference is noticeable. Acting, writing, directing is a pretty difficult, more difficult than most people probably realize. And while none of the actors in any of these are going to get any Oscars, they weren't trying to do Oscar-worthy performances, right?
Yeah.
And you could tell they were just having fun, but it seemed to work in the cases of the movies.
Yeah, I would agree. I think where for me is that dialogue is hard to carry off, right? And you look back on a lot of the movies you've watched, trying to carry on a conversation that feels normal is not easy to do when you're having to read lines and you're faking it. And I almost felt like neither of these movies had lines. It was just people. I mean, especially Velocipaster, there are scenes where I'm sitting there going, what does that have to do with anything? And I think they were just off the cuff, talking.
And the really bad laughter, the evil laughter that we heard in Velocipaster, which made me want to go the direction of, as we're talking about what characteristics really make horror movies compelling for us. While we don't want to focus like traditional reviews do on characters and acting and cinematography, right. I take that for granted.
Yep.
I take for granted how good actors are and how well they are at exactly what you said, convincingly delivered dialogue.
Central, even to that, actually interacting with the CGI character, right?
Yeah.
So how difficult would it be to be acting and facing a green screen or some guy holding a ball that is a dinosaur? I think it takes a lot to, think about people who can cry on demand, right? For a movie. Yeah. I have to think about the worst things possible to actually start crying. And so like you, I have a lot of respect for that.
I do. And I think it comes down to, we have to account for that, but those can't be the only reasons why we identify a movie as watchable or something we would recommend. We can say, I think, the performances weren't convincing, but in some cases they weren't intended to be convincing.
Right. And I think that's the beauty of these two, unbeknownst to each other when we handed these off, that they were going to be these kind of parodies on low budget parody horror films. I mean, the ending of Killing Rack, when her breasts have teeth and they're like, and everybody's circled around her like she's going to fight them and all this stuff, and it's just like these big teeth, and then they pop off, right? And then they're these little living things that are, and then I don't want to tell everybody how they kill them off, which was just as funny, right? Because it's like, oh, I get it, a wired, right? Okay, that's what women complain about all the time. But I do have a question for you. Looking back on that movie made in 2015, could you have made that movie now?
Oh no, not at all. I think the budget went on the breast special effects that they showed, and everybody else must have been just doing it for fun.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So that being said, Synthel, something I wanted to go back and compare a very low budget movie by a very famous director, David Cronenberg, Rabid. Did you ever see the original Rabid from 1977, I think? Low budget. To this day, it still works. It's a very strange film. that actually still works to this day, but it was made for something like $300,000, right? So, again, I look at things like this and go, potential directors, producers. I never want to judge somebody from their first film because you
No.
never know where these things are going to go, right? These two directors could get their next big, gig from this. Velocipaster, I mean, come on, 2 sequels.
It's pretty amazing. Made possible by the streaming. I'd have to believe that COVID contributed a lot to that in media companies looking for content. There's a lot of very low budget movies that I've noticed on Amazon that are rated very highly.
Yes.
And for various reasons. But as we just discussed, they're not trying to be even the Blair Witch Project in terms of intent.
Yep. Would you suggest either of these to people who are looking for movies to watch?
It depends. I would not recommend either one of these as, hey, I'm really looking for a horror movie. But if you're into the off the wall, completely non-serious, and the movie makers themselves intend it to be that way, looking for that, this is something that it reminds me of a lot of the broadcast TV horror shows that
Yes.
we would see on late nights and weekends, where some host would be presenting that's not supposed to be scary. That's if you're in the
Right.
mood for that kind of an experience, then these may be worth watching.
What I would say, Senthil, adding on to that is if you're just in the mood for something culty, something that people have kind of latched onto, and it's become like Troll 2, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, they're going to eat me. This is both of these films are that genre. They realize they don't have a good.
So when they don't take them seriously, they keep it short. And I, like you said, I admire their attempt. This is very difficult to do. It is much more difficult than it appears to be. Everybody from front and behind the camera, even these kind of movies, it's a lot of effort.
Okay, so one more question here for you then. On Velocipaster, Part 2, let's say they have the money to do the dinosaur better. Yay or nay to a better dinosaur?
No, I would keep
Thank you.
the rubber where you see the guy's head sticking out of the back of the dinosaur suit. Oh man, that's even the really cheesy transformation effects.
Yes.
You can't take yourself serious. You have to continue to be as campy and more campy than the previous one. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Otherwise, you have to shoot for Blair Witch Project, and anything less than that is going to be difficult to be compelling.
I agree. If they actually do the special effects better for the second one, I'm going to be disappointed, just because I got to see more of the guy in a really bad dinosaur suit. And I don't even know where they got that dinosaur suit. I've gone online to look. They obviously had to create it themselves. I just can't even find where they got that from.
No, it looks very much like your standard rubber dino suit.
It was worse than that. Come on, Senthil. I mean, I've gone to Amazon. You could get the big T-Rexes with the blow up, that everybody's walking around and playing on the. No, I would love to talk to this director or the producer, somebody from that crew, just to go, what were you thinking? And maybe you try to get a hold of them and see.
I'd love to talk to all three of these producers, because they all have different goals. And what their motivations were and what they were hoping to get out of it, and if they did or not. As we learned, Pungo actually did a crowdfunding to try to raise money. I don't know how these two were funded.
Killing Rack did too. So Killing Rack raised $25,000.
Wow.
Through funding. Now I don't know about Velocipaster. I couldn't find how they did theirs, but Killing Rack was crowdfunded. Senthil, you have anything else to add on these two?
No, I think we need to find two more very similar to this, and see how our experience goes, and continue to look at the low budget. I'd love to, as we discussed, engage some of the producers and crew members to see what their reactions were as well.
Yeah, and we're going to start working towards that. So I'm very excited by this, because I would think, and again, just because I get so involved in what I do, that they, when you're making a movie, you're involved in it. You want it to go well. I don't think most people make a movie to go, oh, I hope it flops horribly. I mean, I genuinely believe that either, hey, we're going to make this as campy as hell, or we're going to try to be as serious as we possibly can be and see what we can do. It can't be easy. All right, Senthil, thank you so much for your time, and we're going to see you next week.
Looking forward to it.
All right.